Welcome back to Tarot Tats and Tea. I have completed the summer section of Ancestral Grimoire and I'm going to share that with you now. Now, albeit we're May, I have carried out all the theory practice and put all the theory and anything I want to go with it in here. I have practical activities that I will be continuing on throughout the rest of May, June and July. And the practical activities are meditations, are breathing in the sun, are making rain sticks, making rattles and carrying out my daily draws. The theory to create my grimoire is all in here and ready to be shared. So how have I found this summer section? To be perfectly honest with you, as with all the other sections, I've really enjoyed it. Now there is quite a lot to get through and I will try to do it as quickly as I can because I would like you to enjoy this and not have to endure this video. So first of all, one of the first tasks was to create a sigil. Okay, now let's go back in the books to June, July, August. June, July, August. So we started in June, celestial magic, and June you needed tarot, sigils and an altar. That's another one of my practical activities that I'm going to be doing, is creating my altar outside. So you use your tarot as we have done all the way through and as we will continue to do so. And we learn who our solstice, who our ancestor is that walks with us through this period, as we have done in all the other chapters. And this is our solar ancestor that we'll be working with. We want to look at, before we go, because we want to look at what was the person's life like, how do I strengthen my connection with that ancestor, what am I overthinking about magic, how can you help my wounded self accept my magic, and what was the nature of their magical work, of that ancestor's magical work. So that was lovely, using tarot to answer all those questions, and they answered it very clearly. So to start off in my grimoire, what I decided to do, to get my solar ancestor, my solstice solar ancestor, it was solstice magic in June, I drew the sun card. Okay, so which was quite ironic because we're working with solar energy. To draw the sun card to find out who my ancestor was for this time was quite something else. And what sort of feelings did I experience when I first drew this card? I have to be honest with you, I imagined that I could feel the healing benefits of the sun, of the heat, feel good factors after a long winter, plant growth, swimming in the sea, meditating on the beach, using water, the sea and rivers as a cleansing gift, and facing the sun in a manner where light and heat cleanse and heal. Okay, it was lovely to get that card. It was I used the decks I used for this were Tarot of the Abyss and the Universal Celtic Tarot, which I've been using all the way through, and I used them 50-50. This time I sort of, for these next 2 months, I've reversed the roles, whereas before I was splitting this up into finding out who my ancestor was by splitting the deck up into majors, minors and courts, and then using this deck to answer questions. I decided for summer and then autumn later on I would swap the roles around. So this deck now became the deck that I found out who my ancestor was. And like I say, to get the sun was like, wow, that's amazing. So it's somebody who works through happiness, through things being just right, life being pretty good, accepting what was there and taking negatives and turning them into positives, and just all in all having that air of peace about them and joy and happiness. And it's funny because as it happens, summer is my most favourite season of the year. and I just indicated it like that in my grimoire. So what you had to go and do then was ask a number of questions of your ancestor and answer them, obviously, through the use of the tarot. So this time, using the sun card to represent my ancestor, I left that out on the table and I asked the questions and used this deck to get the answers. So questions I asked: what was your life like? What was the nature of your magical work? Okay, so I drew the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Wands because I actually pulled 2 cards out at the same time. And for question 2, the 3 of Swords. So what was the nature of your magical work? The 3 of Swords, which I felt was their nature was to heal the heartache of others. Okay. I also then used the Sacred Forest Oracle, which I took out and I drew 2 cards. Was it 2 cards? Yes, it was. Sorry, 3 cards. Three oracle cards to ask how the 3 of Swords, sort of to clarify the 3 of Swords being what their life was like. So there was Bear Spirit, the Wizard of the Woods, and Eagle Spirit. Bear Spirit was all about healing. So the 3 of Swords was there because this ancestor's life was spent working with healing. The Wizard of the Woods was through focus, okay? And in the image of the Wizard of the Woods, the fact that I drew the Sun card, and in the Wizard of the Woods, a beam of light comes down through the trees, it just sort of really did hammer home that message. And Eagle Spirit, which gave freedom. Okay, so they freed people from pain and hurt. They also had the freedom to carry out their work. And I just want to see if I can grab this. There you go. If you look there, the Wizard of the Woods. Isn't that a lovely card? And you can see the sun splitting the trees there. I drew supplementary cards. Those are the cards that we made in the very beginning of this work. And I drew a female from the 18th century, which would have been the 1700s. I confirmed the gender and age and era using my pendulum and board. I asked and had a lot of questions answered. Whilst I was doing this work, a name came to me that I deduced that this was a Welsh person, and a name just quickly entered my head, and I thought, oh, that was strange. So using my older pendulum board, which is this one here, I asked the spirit to actually spell out the name. And they spelt out the name that entered my head, which was Anwen. I firmly believe, for me, that was my ancestor answering my question. Now, I had some questions that I asked, and I didn't want them on sort of public view in my ancestral grimoire, because you never know, someone could get their hands on it. You think, oh. So what I did, created a list of questions and popped them into this envelope and just popped them here. And there you can see the sun card for my ancestors, and the fact that I'm loving nature at the moment, and the summer's coming, and we're foraging and growing and encouraging growth in our plants. I decided to put something, a little image there of growth of food, etc. This went on. You then asked what is the energetic vibration. You drew a card out for that, and I drew the Knight of Wands. Finished any projects that they started. Hasty, adventurous, charming, warm, took risks, confident, getting things done, fearless, self-assured, rebellious, brave, revolutionary, open-minded and a free spirit, but had a bit of a hot temper. And strangely enough, those are many of those traits, many of those traits I could see in myself. And I do have the ability to be a little bit hot-tempered when the wrong buttons are pushed. I enjoy what I do. I like to start and end projects, but I also like to be able to achieve my own goals. I can be a bit of a procrastinator, which was not one of the traits of the ancestor. So how to work with your ancestor? There was a spread to give specific answers. So this is the spread. It's a 6-card spread. Okay, so I used the little tiny tarot, And as you can see, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And the questions you asked: what is my potent magic this solstice? What is my bigger challenge? Stepping into my power. Exactly what magic did my ancestor practice? How can my ancestor help my practice? What magic is the solstice bringing into my life? And how can I honour and thank this ancestor? And I drew the cards and answered them as necessary and interpreted them as I found. The next part of the solstice chapter was solstice sigil, and you made a sigil. You went through the instructions, and like that I created my sigil. You can see my sigil here. Now, how did I get to make this sigil? What was it that encouraged me to come up with this design? Well, what you do, you sort of take, for me, I took letters of all the members of my family, of their surnames, okay, of their Christian names and surnames. So every single person, their initials were on there. And I took initials from letters from each one of the initials to create a word. And the word was Maple Mage. So using the letters Maple Mage, but only using each letter once, I came up with this. So that sigil I drew and I have put on my altar. The next job was to build an outdoor solstice altar. Now, I haven't done that yet. That is what I have got down to do between now and the end of the summer. Because that's something that I want to stay there, so it'll be in situ for the next summer solstice. The exercise breathing in the sun was really relaxing. It was a practical activity that I went outdoors and I just stood there and envisaged myself breathing in the sun, breathing in the warmth and the heat and the light, so that you almost see yourself as a glowing sort of silhouette was the word I was looking for. Instead of a darkened silhouette, you'd be like a bright sort of yellow orangey silhouette, and it was really lovely. And you turn and you face the different compass points and you breathe in it each time. You rotate right and then you redo them rotating left, and afterwards you just feel very refreshed. It felt really good. You then go on to do your daily draw. You know, there was a chapter in, after I'd finished that chapter doing the daily draws, the daily draw sort of ends the chapter as we know. There was the next chapter, which was weather magic. Now, I wasn't actually drawn to actually work with an ancestor for weather magic, and for me it felt like I didn't have an ancestor that would have really focused on weather magic, and therefore I just didn't feel pulled to it at all. I did do the very basics needed, and that was purely because I didn't want to leave the chapter ignored. So what I did to try to deduce whether I did have an ancestor that worked with magic, with weather magic, I drew a major and minor card for each of my parents, okay, from my mum's side of the family and my dad's side of the family. I drew a court, a major and a minor. And all of them, you know, it wasn't a case that they worked with weather magic per se, but the weather could affect whatever their activities they were doing. And like I say, it's a chapter that I just was not pulled strongly to. So I felt that albeit the weather could influence the work of my ancestors, I didn't feel I had one that worked specifically with weather. In this chapter you would use your rain sticks and other tools that could invoke weather magic and rain through the use of rain sticks, etc. As I've said, and I've put it here as a note for myself in my journal, that it's not a chapter I was particularly drawn to, because it didn't feel that it was part of me, which is that's something that has not happened with any of the other chapters within this book. So for that chapter I worked out that there were ancestors whose work was affected by weather, but not that they actually worked with it. And that's allowed, you're not going to have, it's like everyday life, we're not going to have somebody in our family chain that fits every single sort of occupation in the world. So, from doctors to plumbers to builders to telephonists to psychiatrists and psychologists. It would be impossible. And like that, it'd be the same with ancestral work. So personal magic was the next chapter for summer. And I have to say, this has been one of the best so far. I've really enjoyed working through this. There's been quite a lot to get through. So first of all, for this, you need tarot, a rattle, bind runes and crystals. And bind runes are rune symbols that are joined together to create one symbol that you would use for protection. And you can use more than 2 runes to create a bind rune. I actually ended up using 7, and I will get to that later on. So my ancestor, I drew the Queen of Pentacles for a court card. From the supplementary cards, a female from the 13th century, which would be in the 1200s. The Magician and Moon were majors that came out for this ancestor, and the Ace of Cups. And very much a feeling with the Magician and the Moon card, there was that sort of high priestess vibe with those two mixing together, that she had the knowledge and understanding, and she worked by day and night, that the Moon was very much part of the energy that she put into her work. And she was the Queen of Pentacles. She was sort of the top of the game when it came to what she did. So so what life did I share with this ancestor? Because this chapter is past life magic. So it's from our past life, who we worked with, what role that ancestor played in our life, and did we actually work together? Was I there with that person in a past life? It was all very, very positive. I heard a funny noise there outside. Sorry. It was all very, very positive and very, very real. Now, how, sort of what things did I come across, did I feel? Now, you see, from the cards, it's that we both enjoyed working with earth, water and moon magic. Okay, we both have strength in these areas. You then look, have you ever been somewhere for the first time and felt, I've been here before? Or not necessarily that you've been there before, but you feel like you belong. Well, when I first set foot on an Ackle Island in the early 2000s, I was with my family, and I just felt very drawn to this place, and I said so to my parents. There's a lot of things that I have since learned through Ancestry and Ancestral DNA that I will keep personal, but the feelings and the history and the ancestral work have worked hand in hand to a point that you can't say, well, it's not real, it's all made up, because there just can't be that many coincidences, You look, when you're doing this, you then do a spread, okay? So you're looking for a trait that from the identified past that I'm repeating today, an unresolved family issue from that life, past life family patterns to embrace, past life family patterns to banish, and why is this life so important for me to remember? So again, I did that spread, and it was very, very revealing, and it was very, very enjoyable actually to actually take part in it. It's quite a magical spread, if the truth be known. So reaping from another life. So before I went into doing the reaping from another life, I first listed things that I want to reap from this life, and hopefully with all my earth magic and all the planting and foraging I've done, I'm hoping to reap and harvest this year apples, plums and cherries, sweet corn, peppers, tomatoes, a variety of herbs, strawberries, sprouts, and I think that's it really. And I want to be able to say, I grew this. This will be my first year of serious growth of vegetables. Oh, and garlic too, mustn't forget the garlic. Now, when you're reaping from another life, you're carrying out a harvest spread. And this harvest spread is, this harvest spread is telling you what you have reaped from your past life, how your past life has helped you today. So what am I in the process of harvesting? And I drew for that. This is a 5-card spread. And I did it twice. I used this deck to represent the past. So I drew 5 cards from this one. And I used this deck to represent the present and drew 5 cards. And I had a row above and a row below. So in the row above on the past life, when I sort of looked at it, I first of all, just bear with me here a second, sorry, I created the 2 spreads, okay, there and there. So when I was asking the questions and answering them, I was answering the past and the present, okay, so I used the 2 different colour inks for this one. So let's have a look. What am I in the process of harvesting? So from the past, using my, it was the 7 of Pentacles, using my skills to bring in a living, harvesting an income from what I could do. So that's how, what I was doing at that time. In the present, it's the Hierophant, harvesting knowledge from past lives and ancestors, harvesting from Mother Nature, learning how to appreciate what we can grow to eat and survive. And being the Hierophant, the teacher, and passing on this knowledge to our children or our friends in the community, and sharing it, learning and teaching together, so that, you know, we're all on the receiving knowledge and we're all giving knowledge. So what needs more time to grow? So in the past I had 8 of Pentacles, work and income to match the work carried out. So the work would be long and quite arduous, but because I was applying myself at the time, it was bringing in income, but it would take time to bring in more of an income, as you know, as it grew. Present, what needs more time to grow? So in the present, I got the 6 of Wands, my own self-belief in order to grow and master skills and talents to eventually achieve a level of success to be at the top of my game. Okay, and that's in a number of things, whether it's my hobbies, because don't forget I'm retired now, so I don't actively go out to work. So things that I want to be successful in are my hobbies and interests, which would be gardening, which would be my tarot, which would be all my esoteric subjects that I love to study, painting and writing. Writing is the one I want to achieve. That's the one that I procrastinate the most, because that's the one that I doubt my own skills and abilities. So what seeds never took root? So what seeds never took root? For the past, it was 6 of Pentacles. And for the present, it was Temperance. So how can we say, well, how can you sort of deduce what seeds didn't take root from those 2 cards? Well, because the 6 of Pentacles was there, what did not take root was meanness. It never took a hold of this, of either myself, my ancestor, or whichever aspect we're looking from here, never took root. As in a past life, sharing and caring was the name of the game. In the present, Temperance, which is really in conjunction with how that 6 of Pentacles sort of felt for me. And Temperance sort of war and unpleasantness never took root, because we have the card of peace and everything flowing lovely, as peace and harmony reigns with patience and tolerance, which fits in hand in glove with what happened in past lives. So then we had to clarify those cards for each one. So for clarification for the Six of Pentacles, I pulled the Ace of Wands. That's a big yes. Yeah, hello, this is right. You know, bang on. That's exactly what never took root. And the opposite of the card, the opposite of what the card is showing. So the card showing all this sort of sharing, caring, giving, and it is stating that was the order of the day. Meanness and selfishness did not take root. The present, I pulled Temperance, if you recall, and the clarifier was the Judgment card, making the necessary changes that were needed to bring about peace and harmony that I now enjoy. Also not judging others, either negatively on first sight or from the words of others. Now, I have been stung by that in the past. I live by the ethos of I won't judge a book by its cover, neither will I judge a book by another person's opinion. Judge a person by another person's opinion. That sometimes we need to take heed of other people's opinions. If you're given a heads up, a little bit warm, be careful there. That one might not be so nice, might be a little bit duplicitous, might not have other people's best interests at heart, and tends to cause a row with her own toenails, let alone with other people. There are a number of times that I should have listened to those words, but I'm like, no, well, that's your experience. This person might be different with me. But like they say, does a leopard change its spots? I don't like judging people that they can't change, because people can. And I just need to be a little more wary and not be so open and all welcoming when it comes to picking friends. Then you had to pick a card for meditation. So for the past, it was the Five of Swords, and for the present, it was the Chariot. And those are two meditations that I will be practicing after we have finished here. Then we moved on to protecting the home and family, and with this we created a bind rune. And as I said earlier on, a bind rune is the joining of two or more runic symbols in order to create your own symbol that whatever energy you put into that gives the protection that you're looking for. So what was I looking for protection for? For my home and family. That's my family here and afar. For our safety in the vehicles we travel in. For my tarot and magical practices. That includes my gifts from my ancestors. For prosperity, we'd all like enough to keep the wolf from the door. For a good harvest, and for strength. Because life, despite all that we do here, life can still have the habit of throwing us curveballs, and there are occasions where more than one member of that family may need to be able to draw on their own strengths. So when you create this rune bind, that's your personal bind. So albeit I have written down here which runes I used, I underneath have drawn how I've binded them together, and that stays yours. That's personal. I think, let's just have a look. It was shown in this book. Nancy did show us hers. There you go. And there's the bind rune. So that's her first rune, which is heritage. Sorry, her gift, heritage and her gift, and she's bound them together. Okay, and that's what she wants protection with. I suppose in that case I'll show you mine. Mine's a little bit complicated, because I don't tend to do things easily, because I wanted so much protecting. That's mine. Okay, so there you go. After we did that, we then looked at a past life gift, and the past life gift is you shuffle your cards, you draw a card, and that's the gift that your ancestor is giving you, the advice of the card drawn. And I drew the Hierophant, which the element is earth, which is great because that's what I do an awful lot of work with. So I'm quite certain the majority of my ancestors were earth workers. Okay, the sign is Taurus, and the key word is teaching, and I'm a retired teacher. I had an Akashic reading done a couple of years ago, and apparently in all my past lives, I've had a few of them according to this Akashic Records reading I had done, I had been either a teacher or a solicitor in each one of these lives, or you know, a legal worker, and I worked with the underprivileged in all of those lives. And when she asked me if I could tell her what career I had now, before I retired, I said, well, as a teacher. And I had moved from mainstream education. Well, initially I started out in behavioural support with children and young offenders. Then I went back into mainstream, and whilst in mainstream worked on my postgrad and worked with children on the autistic spectrum. So she was able to say to me, well, you literally carried this down through all your lives, and you sort of, what you were doing, you're now getting more sort of legal help from experts in the fields today, which is so true. That wasn't there previously. It was like just working, you know, with what you had, what you knew, what you understood. And that was really nice to know. So when the Hierophant came out, and the key word for this was teaching, the message, you've taught and led, you understand the gift of teaching and learning. This has been the theme throughout your lives. Recall the Akashic reading. You know and understand that this is a lifelong gift, the love of teaching and the love of learning. Continue to use it wisely for the rest of your days. One must never stop learning and passing on your knowledge. You then had what I've done for myself. I've made a list of what I have to do between now and the next time that I will be doing the autumn section to this, which will be in August. So albeit I will be making other videos, there won't be another ancestral one now until August, because the summer one is done, and now I have for May, June and July to make a rattle, to make the rain stick, follow the weather for weather omens, build an outdoor solstice altar, practice breathing in the sun, revisit the moon magic, that was the one from May, and using the tarot spreads throughout the summer seasons that appeared in chapter 4, which was sort of spring. Use the and do my daily draws. And then this chapter closed with one last spread. Instead of doing a daily card pull at the very end of the summer, you're asked to do this summer spread. And you draw 6 cards. And it's a reading for you and your ancestor in the life that you shared. Okay? So this is an ancestor that physically lived and breathed at the time you lived and breathed in a previous life. So the first one was, what was our life like growing up? And I got the 3 of Swords. And when you see that, it's like, oh, wow. So how did I interpret the 3 of Swords? Was my life complete hardship and heartache? Not necessarily. It just wasn't an easy life. There were hardships to be faced, but there were for everybody in those days. We had each other to lean on. And the 3 of Swords in this deck, why did I state that we had each other to lean on? Because that's what I got from this particular 3 of Swords. It was right at the bottom. Look at that, the 3 of Swords. And it's like, well, we had each other to lean on in times of trouble and hardship. That no matter what went on, we were there for each other. But you see, if we combine what I know from this and what I know from the Akashic reading, that my life would have been difficult with the jobs I chose to do, whether it's representing or helping the poor, the sick and the elderly, etc. So what kind of work did I do? So here we have the Hermit. So I worked in a quiet, in the quiet, in sort of background. I did a lot of introspective work, but I did work as well that quietly led and guided other people, and sharing what I knew with them. What was my life purpose? And also going back, that fits in with teaching. What was my life purpose? We had the 4 of Swords here, to let people know it was not a life of all work and no play, that rest is necessary in life. It doesn't matter what years we've gone back to, where we are now, what we do, that it's always important to take a rest. Number 4. What is it that I wanted more than anything else? Well, this was a strange one because I got the King of Swords. So for me, that was to be decisive, to take the actions necessary in order to progress and grow and change. So it was to have that strength, that determination and the ability to actually make a decision, because being Libran, I'm sort of balanced between one idea and another and think, oh, do I want to do this or do I want to change my mind a little bit? It can be a little bit indecisive, and it's decisiveness that I actually wanted, and I still do now. Overall, my life was. Now, this was very much a contradiction in terms of what question 1 was, because what was our life like growing up? Not easy. A lot of hardship was faced, but we had each other to lean on, okay? However, when we get overall, my life was temperance. Oh, sorry, no, it wasn't. It was the 9 of Cups. Happy, wishes granted, growth and change, you know. So it might have been a difficult life, but there was happiness. It wasn't all drudgery, you know. So as I left that life, I thought about what? So as I left that life, when I was taking my last breath in that life, what did I think of? Very, very deep question. For that, I drew Temperance, which was a beautiful card to draw in answer to that question, because that sort of says that I was at peace, that I knew I was moving on to the next chapter of another life, that I was bringing everything that I had learned and taking it with me to start off and grow and morph into what I am today. And it was to carry on my work, and that I could leave that time in peace, in harmony, knowing that I had achieved what I had set out to do. So that rounded up the summer. And to be quite honest with you, it's been a very deep one, this, very deep. And it's been a curious journey. So the next one is autumn, and I shall be back with the next instalment of the Ancestral Grimoire sometime in August. In the meantime, do keep following, do keep joining in, because there are many other videos that I will be making to continue the enjoyment of my life and tarot. Take care, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Bye now.